welcome to the CDG BizCast. I'm your host, Christian Gonzalez, co-owner of Creativity Design Group, a digital marketing firm in Houston, Texas. Today, we will be discussing two recent cybersecurity incidents that happened within a month of each other. The first one being the recent CrowdStrike outage that occurred on July 19, 2024, which affected Windows systems worldwide, and a major ransomware attack that assaulted England's NHS, the National Health Service, which took place on June 3rd. The CrowdStrike outage is considered to be the largest IT outage in history. Millions of Windows systems operating on the enterprise level were brought down, which resulted in several organizations and companies going offline worldwide. This event was unprecedented, and the disruption was so large that Y2K pales in comparison. The ransomware attack that took down the NHS was orchestrated by a Russian cybercrime group known as Kilin, who stole and shared 400 gigabytes of extremely sensitive patient data from a blood test management organization known as Synovus. We will cover both of these events in detail and discuss what businesses and organizations can do to be prepared should events of this magnitude ever occur again. CDG BizCast consumer panelist Sara of the United Kingdom joins us to discuss how this outage affected her as a customer. Welcome back, Sara. It is always a pleasure to have you on BizCast.
Hello, Christian. Hello to your listeners. It's a pleasure to be here again. I hope people find this episode very interesting.
This episode will certainly cover the ins and outs of both of these cybersecurity attacks that occurred recently. A lot of people probably have questions about what happened. The consumers certainly do. And businesses can certainly learn quite a few key pointers as well from this episode. The first thing that I want to talk about is the CrowdStrike outage. The CrowdStrike outage affected several computer systems worldwide, and it only affected Windows systems, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. Apple and Linux systems were not affected due to them having a different architecture for how their operating systems work. All of these platforms, whether it's Windows, Linux, or Mac, the CrowdStrike cybersecurity platform known as Falcon can run on all of them, and many of these organizations and companies were running Falcon. Falcon embeds itself into the operating systems through their kernel, which is the underlying foundation that powers an entire operating system. It embeds itself as a process within the operating system. Apple and Linux have different kernels, so Falcon was integrated into these operating systems differently than with Windows. With Windows, the issue was much different. Let's talk about what caused the outage and what services were affected. So the CrowdStrike Falcon platform is used by organizations all over the world of all sizes across many different industries. And then, just like I mentioned, it hooks itself into Windows as a kernel process, and we all know about startup processes. These are all embedded into the overall system. Falcon has high privileges, which gives it the ability to monitor operations in real time across Windows. This is to make sure that certain security procedures are being followed and that there aren't any foreign attacks coming in. There was a flaw in logic related to one of Falcon's sensors in version 7.11 and above, which caused it to crash. And due to Falcon's tight integration into the Microsoft Windows kernel, it resulted in a system crash and the ever so terrifying blue screen of death. So the sensor that I just mentioned is regularly updated, and sometimes multiple times daily, to make sure that the latest threat protection is being provided system-wide. When it comes to large-scale corporations handling sensitive data, you want to make sure that threats are being monitored in real time and updated in real time to make sure that they are caught as they are released, because there's always new threats coming out daily. And that's also true for antivirus software programs as well. These updates ensure that the latest of threats are caught in real time. As soon as they are released, the systems are informed and their databases are updated to reflect that. That way, if one of these new threats enters your system, it'll catch it right away. Now, the flawed update was contained in a file that CrowdStrike refers to as channel files, which specifically provide configuration updates for behavioral protections. Channel file 291 was an update that was to help improve how Falcon evaluates named pipe execution on Microsoft Windows. Named pipes are a common type of communication mechanism for inter-process communications on Windows. So channel file File 291 unfortunately introduced a logic error which caused the Falcon sensor to crash and deliver the blue screen of death to Windows systems that were running it. So there was a specific version of channel 291 that contained this error. It didn't apply to all of them. There was a specific one that had this flaw that triggered the error. So by the time CrowdStrike noticed the error and reverted the change, it was already too late because a lot of systems were rendered inoperable due to this flaw. They did in fact jump on it and fix it, but many systems were already past the point of no return where they had to have some sort of solution to get their systems up and running again. As a result, systems worldwide went down. So what type of systems were affected exactly? 8.5 million Windows devices were directly affected, and that's less than 1% of Microsoft's global Windows user base. Specifically, airports and airlines, public transit, healthcare systems, as we discussed at the beginning of the episode, and financial services and media and broadcasting services were disrupted. We saw several different airlines and airports go down. Many flights were canceled or halted, and healthcare, and this is a really big one right here, and then hospitals and clinics faced major disruptions, which unfortunately resulted in 911 emergency services being affected in states such as Alaska, Indiana, and New Hampshire. Financial services. Many financial institutions were down. People could not get their paychecks or use ATM machines. I'm going to talk about this in just a second as I experienced that personally the day that this happened. And it was also reported that in media and broadcasting, many networks were down, including British broadcaster Sky News. This network specifically was taken off the air due to this major flaw. So, Sara, what is your opinion, your overall opinion about what happened here? How did these outages affect you, and how did it personally affect your daily life or anything that you happen to be working on that day in general?
Well, me personally, it didn't affect me at all, not CrowdStrike, but I know everybody else had issues, obviously, with flights. Kids have broken up from their school now, so they're all wanting to fly out, and all the flights, as you said, in the US were cancelled, a lot of them. A lot of them over here are still cancelling flights now, not able to take off. They're having to take them off because it was connected to air traffic control. It's just brought the whole country to a standstill, the same as all over the world, as you've said. So someone's stupidity has turned into a worldwide panic attack. So now people are struggling because they want to go on holiday with the kids. They now can't. What are they doing? They're having to go on different flights. That's them backing up the whole system. People are getting refunds and then not going on holiday, so you're going to have stressed kids and stressed parents and everything. So the whole holiday thing is up the wall, and it's still happening even now over here. Still got delays. I've looked at it a little while ago. Banks, as you said in the US, the same thing. We had issues with banks, with people's pay. That's why they're getting paid this weekend and not next weekend, because they've set up a system where everybody, so it's usually the end of the month people get paid. They're going to be getting paid this weekend coming because of the problems. They're going to do it a day earlier. So I think they're going to do it on a Thursday instead of the Friday/Saturday. Also over here, you said about healthcare stuff. Ours was slightly different, but we had trouble with prescriptions because they were running all on Windows. So all the prescriptions went down. So nobody could have prescriptions prescribed to them for a couple of weeks. I think it's getting back to normal now. Luckily, I didn't have to put mine in, my prescription, but I know many that were struggling to get prescriptions done. They could do the odd one over the counter instead, but they then had to make a note of what they'd actually prescribed someone, because obviously then they can't give it again when they get the real prescription, because they're just giving it, sort of lending it to them until they get the proper prescription. So it caused a bit of chaos in the chemists and the people who are prescribing all the medication and that. But other than that, and as you said, Sky, yes, Sky, the whole TV channel just went. We have Sky News and that. There was no Sky at all in this country. I think it come back a couple of days ago, but we're not on for a long time. It had blips, so I haven't looked today if it's on, but yeah. Other than that, that's the sort of chaos that's caused. But it's mainly for us over here. It was the banks, medication, and the flight. flights because of air traffic control and everything. So yes, absolute chaos.
Yes, that's quite unfortunate that all that happened. It is important to note that this was not a cyber attack, but just simply a flaw in their system that caused all these computers to go down. It is easy to view it as a cyber attack because it took down worldwide networks of computers. However, it is important to remember that this is a problem that can be easily remedied, believe it or not. The problematic updated file can be removed, and there is a method for removing it, which I will link to a solution in the description of this episode. This solution was provided by HORNET Security, a cybersecurity firm that I discovered while doing my research. They provided a direct solution. It shows how to delete this problematic file in order to get these computers going again, because IT departments everywhere are scrambling trying to get all these computers online again, because it's not just a matter of a computer being offline, it's a fact that these computers being out has caused all of their business to come to a complete stop. And we don't see anything like this happen very often. It is scary, especially when you know that there's a lot of sensitive patient data at stake. I'm going to talk about some tips that can help businesses stay better prepared for these outages. And the first set of tips I want to talk about are related to hackers who are taking advantage of this outage. So it's important to remember that this was major and your system is most likely going to be down for a while, which opens doors for hackers to come in. During that time while your systems are down, remember things like this. For one thing, there are a lot of phishing emails and fake phone calls going out to CrowdStrike customers who are pretending to be CrowdStrike employees trying to help. They're also selling scripts that can help automate recovery from this messed up update. And there are also people pretending to be independent researchers saying that the outage was in fact a cyber attack, and they're offering remediation. Now remember, this was not a cyber attack. If you get random calls from people telling you that they're with CrowdStrike, or you're getting emails saying that they have a solution that you can download, ignore them, because that script that they're trying to sell you is most likely going to be something that'll ruin your systems even more and may in fact steal all of your data, because all of these hackers and scammers right now are taking advantage of the fact that the Falcon platform is completely down on all of these systems, and they want to get their hands on all that data before the systems get back up and running again. So they're going to try to do some shady stuff. So if your system was affected, always do your due diligence. If you get calls or email from anybody claiming to be from CrowdStrike trying to offer a solution, contact CrowdStrike first and confirm that these emails and calls are indeed legit. Do not just simply take their word for it, because you don't know who this person is. It might be a scammer / hacker combo who is trying to both steal your money and all of your data and further compromise your systems even more. Remember, if anybody calls you saying it was a cyber attack, that alone confirms that this is not somebody from CrowdStrike, because they've already confirmed that this was an outage due to an update, not a cyber attack. And only follow instructions from legitimate sources. Never download or open attachments from suspicious looking emails. Never click on links in suspicious looking emails. Just because it comes from CrowdStrike does not mean it's from them. Check the headers and see who these emails came from. If the email is not from CrowdStrike, then that's another red flag. You can send that email to spam. So how can businesses also be better prepared for outages in general? Well, for one thing, it's important to test all updates before deploying them to production. That's actually something CrowdStrike should have done. Test out these updates before you release them to the public. It's always been a good practice for years to allow automated updates to ensure that systems are up to date, because you want to make sure that everything in your system is up to date. Not just your security software, but Windows itself, the software that you're running on it. This ensures that all security breaches are patched. However, that doesn't mean that all updates are perfect. Being that under CDG, I've dealt with WordPress for many years. I've seen updates crash WordPress sites because they were not compatible with the latest version of WordPress. Always make sure that you have a way to reverse the update and go back to the original version. Unfortunately, CrowdStrike released this update without really knowing what was going on, and as a result, all their customers went offline. And for mission critical systems, it's always important to test updates before deploying them. Have some sort of staging environment available where you can test out the updates before running them on live systems. A staging environment is simply a test environment. This is something that's common in web design as well, because being that we work with WordPress here at CDG, we know the importance of testing out certain features before deploying them on live customer sites. This ensures that a live customer site does not go down. Speaking of that, when you are running a website on a hosting environment that involves staging, always test out new features and updates on the staging environment before you test it out on your live site. You don't want your actual live website that the customers are seeing right now to go down while they are trying to use your site, because you could miss out on potential business. The next thing that businesses should remember to do is develop and document manual workarounds. So this is something that your IT department will have to do. Having manual workarounds make sure that critical business processes can continue even when an outage like this happens. So this approach was very common before the digital age happened, and in the event of something major like this, it can serve as a fallback, because you want to make sure that you can keep business going despite the outage. But not only that, you want to make sure that you can keep business going in a secure manner, because we have to keep in mind that in this case, Falcon was down and systems were pretty much open. So ensuring that you have a manual procedure that you can follow in the event of a major outage ensures that all operations continue as usual in a secure manner. And of course, this is something that your IT departments will have to develop. Your IT departments will be able to develop workarounds that can keep your systems going despite a major outage. Also, you'll want to make sure that you perform disaster recovery regularly and have some sort of plan to keep business going. So outages can happen for any reason. It's not just for events like this. Something much more damaging like a cybersecurity attack, which we're going to discuss an example of in just a bit, can be extremely damaging. It can bring your whole computer system down, and several pieces of sensitive information are at risk. So having some sort of disaster recovery plan in place will make sure that regardless of what happens, your data is secure and operations can continue on. So again, this is something that your IT departments will be able to discuss, and if you do not have an IT department, you can always consult with a cybersecurity firm to help you get things going, to help you develop a rock-solid plan that keeps your processes in place and your data secure. We're going to discuss the NHS ransomware attack now, but before we do, Sara, how do you feel as a consumer your data is when something like this happens? In general, how do you feel as a customer? Do you feel that businesses are doing enough to make sure your data is safe?
No, I don't think so. I think they could do more, obviously. Everyone would say that they could do more. Even the businesses would say that they could do more to secure people's safety. But in this case, as you said, it's a glitch. It's not like a hacking thing or cybercrime, but it's affected the whole world. So really, it actually is some sort of crime because it's affecting the whole world. If it was affecting just a few people in different countries, it wouldn't be, such a massive crime. It would just be, there's a blip in the matrix, But this isn't a blip in the matrix. It's quite a important thing. It's people's data, personal information that is being leaked out to the whole world. And as you say, it's open to hackers now. Hackers are just taking advantage of it, which they were before. It's like you're leaving the door open to them. You're leaving your front door open to these hackers to walk in and take everything you own. This is what this is done now, this attack. I guess it is an attack because it's affected everybody. So, it's scary. As a consumer, I feel scared that my information might be out there, and it could have been prevented. So that's how I feel, Christian. I don't know how you feel yourself about it, because it probably affected you.
It did affect me minorly, and I'm going to explain what happened that day. I didn't find out till later, but I do agree with you that cybersecurity is something that is always changing. And I do feel that some businesses and organizations are not taking cybersecurity serious enough. I mean, I've been to different places, including banks, believe it or not, who are still running Windows 7 on their systems, including the ATM machines. That's a major cybersecurity risk because support for Windows 7 ended way back in 2020. And that simply means Microsoft is no longer rolling out security updates for it or making any new features for it. And when a company stops supporting a certain version of a certain program, continuing to use it is a major security risk because it opens doors for hackers to look for different exploits since there are no more security patches being supplied. And we talked about this in episode 50 when Pierre, our friend and cybersecurity expert, joined us to talk about this. He stressed the importance of ensuring that systems stay up to date to make sure that security holes are covered. I did not learn about the CrowdStrike outage until later in the day on the 19th when this occurred. So I was out doing business and I went to a couple of different banks. So the first branch that I went went to had an ATM that was down. Not knowing at the time that the outage was going on, I left and went to another branch further down the street. Now this one, same story. The drive-up ATMs were down. So I'm thinking there must be some sort of network outage going on. I park and I go inside and I see a long line at the ATM inside the foyer of the bank. So this apparently was the only ATM that was working. Inside, the teller window was also closed, as well as the other ATM inside the bank's lobby. There was only one ATM working, and it was the one in the foyer, and there was a line forming at it. The line went all the way inside because this was the only ATM in the entire bank that was working. When I get home, I read about this outage, and now everything is starting to fall into place. Now I see why there was so much trouble and why so many ATMs were down. They must have been running on CrowdStrike. I do know for a fact that this bank's ATMs run on Windows, so that explains it all. And I'll also throw in that I've been to a few other locations where the ATMs weren't working, and I saw the Windows 7 login screen on other occasions. They really need to update these ATMs to Windows 11 because Windows 10 is no longer going to be supported a year from the time of this taping. Microsoft has plans to end support for Windows 10 in 2025, which is 10 years after its release. So when you're handling sensitive data like this, you need to keep your computer's operating systems and all the programs installed on it up to date. We talk about several tips to help you make sure your systems remain secure in episode 50, where we talk about the basics of cybersecurity.
I can't believe that banks are still using Windows 7. I'm like really shocked. I can't believe that. I'm on the Insider Windows program for Windows 11.5 or something, I think it is. So I'm doing the Windows Insider program. So I'm sort of like one of the, I guess, like a guinea pig, making sure they're working properly. But there's a few blips with the newer system, so we have to feed that back. But I get updates before everybody else. But I just can't believe that this system doesn't automatically update it anyway, as it does on your own PCs or your laptops and things. Is that not the case with big businesses and stuff? Just a consumer question, I guess.
Well, it really depends on how each system is being maintained. So IT departments are in charge of ensuring that regular updates are being delivered to the system. So it is recommended that they have automatic updates turned on. So it really just depends on how they're maintaining it, if they have it turned on or not. In a perfect world, the IT departments will have auto updates turned on, but it just depends on what they're doing and how they're maintaining them.
Cool. Okay. Thanks for replying to the question. It's just suddenly hit me. I thought, no, I can't understand why they're not able to upgrade. As you say, it's now not supported. Windows 7 is now not supported. So what are they doing? So it's easy for hackers to get in. It is. They're opening the door to them, literally.
Exactly. And we talked about that in episode 50 as well. They are opening the doors to hackers. I think it's completely stupid that they're running something that outdated. And don't even get me started on all of the systems that are still running Windows XP.
Oh, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Oh, I don't want to know. That is well outdated.
Consumers make the mistake of running outdated computer systems too, predicated on the belief that it still works. Quote from different consumers I spoke to in the past. And remember, as a consumer, a small business, or anybody on the enterprise level, cybersecurity is equally important for all three of these groups. If you're a consumer, you want your systems to be secure because you don't want your banking information stolen or anything else sensitive, especially if you do a lot of online shopping and banking. The "it still works" excuse is basically for people who still want to use Windows 7 or anything older. They can power on the computer, get on the internet, and start browsing the web, which is true. You can with these older operating systems. They do in fact still work, but guess what? It is a major security flaw to continue using an outdated operating system. So never continue to use an outdated version of Windows or any other operating system simply because you see that it just still works. It may still work, but it's not secure. Microsoft or whoever the developer of the operating system of your choice has stopped sending updates to that particular version a long time ago, and there's all sorts of holes in these older versions of these operating systems and software programs where hackers can exploit. They can go in, they can steal all your data, and then guess what? Now you're a victim of a cyber attack, potentially identity theft.
Yeah, bad times then, isn't it? Bad times. So easy to upgrade as well because you can go on whatever your system is, whatever setup you have, you can probably go on there and you can probably buy or download the next one up for your computer or your PC, the program, can you? The Windows program like Windows 11. If you've got a Windows 7 or an XP, can you download a program for Windows 11 as a consumer or as a business person? You could probably buy the package. The same with the consumer, you'd probably buy the package. I don't know, to be safe, I think that's what I'd do. I wouldn't say, oh, it works, it's old, it's outdated, it's not secure. Oh, it works. It doesn't. It's not safe.
You can purchase a new copy of Windows, or if you have a copy that's eligible for upgrade, you can. We're talking about Windows, but operating systems in general can be upgraded. However, there are a few things that you need to consider. You can only upgrade if your computer can support these newer versions of Windows. So a Windows XP machine is not going to be capable of running Windows 11, and in some cases, Windows 10. And if you're a Mac user, Apple only supports upgrading the version of Mac OS on your system up to a certain point. At that point, you have to purchase a whole new device because there are cutoffs for certain models of Mac. For example, if you are running a 2017 Mac, you won't be able to run the latest version of Mac OS on it. You'll have to purchase a whole new machine. There are workarounds to help you run newer versions of Mac OS on unsupported older computers. However, this is not recommended and it is not supported by Apple. You will have to either upgrade your systems or find an alternative, unfortunately. So yes, to answer your question, you can upgrade your computers, but there are certain caveats about upgrading. You do have to have a compatible device, and you have to make sure that your hardware supports it.
There's limitations then. Cool. Okay.
This is why in schools, hospitals, and corporations, and of course in other major organizations that utilize technology on an enterprise level, you'll notice that the computers always change out every so often. That's because they're trying to keep the hardware current so they can keep the software that's on them current. This ensures that they remain secure. When you're operating on the enterprise level, security is the number one most important thing to consider, and that usually means having to buy new equipment or at least upgrading them whenever possible over a period of time. This is usually over within the course of a few years or less, I would say.
Cool. Okay, lovely. Thank you for that.
While we're still on the subject of enterprise level cybersecurity, let's talk about NHS and the recent ransomware attack that they faced. So for all of our listeners out there who don't know what ransomware is a harmful program that takes over your computer. It encrypts all of the data on the computer, all of your files, to where you can no longer open the files anymore. And then the program itself demands that you pay a certain amount, usually in Bitcoin, to unlock your files. And here's the thing, a lot of these programs, they often double as scams too, because they'll ask for you to pay a ransom to get your files back in order to get a key that'll unlock them. There are many cases where you won't receive nothing. You'll just pay the money and then you get nothing. So basically, you not only lose all of your important data on your computer, but you also lose your money as well if you pay that. Anytime this happens, it's important not to pay any money. In NHS's case, the hacking group Killin demanded $50 million for them to get their data back. But before I talk about that, let me explain what happened. So NHS England confirmed that sensitive patient data managed by Synovus, a blood test management organization, was stolen in a cyber attack on June the 3rd of 2024. This was about a month and a half ago from us taping this episode. It was carried out by, as I mentioned, Killin, which is a Russian cybercrime group who goes out targeting systems, stealing their data, and then demanding a ransom for it. They demanded from Synovus $50 million US. I'm not exactly sure how much that is in British pound, and Synovus did not pay the ransom, which was the right thing to do. You never give these groups any money. You don't know what their intentions are. Just because they say they will release the data in exchange for paying them the amount they're demanding doesn't mean they're actually going to do it. Remember, these are criminals. They're not honest people. Just because they say they're going to do it doesn't mean they will. If anything, if Synovus paid that $50 million US, they would have never seen the data again. These are criminals. They would have stolen that money. You can't trust criminals. But effects of the attack created a domino effect across 7 NHS hospitals that were run by 2 separate NHS trusts. You can see how one hacking attempt had a major effect across NHS system-wide. 7 hospitals run by 2 separate trusts. NHS has several different trusts. They had several different branches of NHS that were not affected stepping in to help save these. They came to their aid. More than 3,000 hospitals and appointments were thrown into chaos as a result of this. These Russian hackers hackers were able to execute a breach by injecting malware into Synovis's IT system that runs all their computers. It locked the entire system down. Every computer on this network received this program, and it displayed a message saying they could regain control if they paid the ransom. So what stolen data was affected? It included patient details such as their names, their birthdays, their NHS numbers, which I'm going to assume are just their ID numbers for being NHS patients, and descriptions of the blood tests that were being done. In addition to patient information, they also obtained business records such as account spreadsheets that detailed financial transactions between hospitals, related services, and Synovis itself. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of sensitive data at play here that was stolen, and anybody who was affected, of course, needs to go to their banks and have all their banking information changed, get new credit or debit cards issued right away, because right now the information is affected. And in terms of banking information and if any money was stolen from those accounts, at this point we don't know what happened there. I want to talk about NHS itself. This was not the first time that they had faced a cyber attack. You know why they faced so many cyber attacks? Because they lacked the adequate funding to bolster their systems. Now, this basically means because they lack funding, they are not doing enough to upgrade their computer systems to keep them current and up to date. So what does this result in? This basically results in them becoming low-hanging fruit for cyber criminals. They start doing whatever they can to exploit the system to see what they can hack and steal from them. So it is very important to keep your systems up to date, keep them secure, keep your hardware up to date, keep your cybersecurity platform strong. Always keep any software programs on your computers up to date, no matter how small they are. And of course, Windows or whichever operating system you're running, always install the latest updates for them. Now, we've been talking about computer systems, but I also want to go back to websites as well. Remember, CDG is a website design firm. We handle websites regularly. We always strive to ensure that the latest versions of WordPress are installed. And for all of our customers who purchase our website maintenance, we always make sure that the latest updates are installed, because your websites are just as vulnerable as anything else on your computer. And if you're transmitting sensitive customer information through your websites, you want to make sure that not only is WordPress, its core theme and plugins up to date, but you want to make sure that you have an SSL certificate installed, which in plain English is encryption for the data on your website. Consumers, when you are browsing websites, do you ever look at the address bar to see if it's secure or not secure? It usually shows a padlock, a green padlock showing that it's secure. On Google Chrome, it'll show red if it is not secure. On other browsers, you will simply see a padlock up there indicating that the website is secure. And if it's not secure, you'll see a line drawn through the padlock. That indicates on other browsers that it's not secure. So if anytime you see that it is not secure, you'll want to leave that website and never return to it. And you'll especially never want to fill out any forms or purchase anything through those websites. Website owners, make sure that you go through your hosting company to get an SSL certificate if you do not have one. It is also a major ranking factor for Google. Google will blacklist your website and refuse to list it in their search results if it is not secure. It's one of many ranking factors, but that is one of the biggest ones, because they do not want to serve websites that could potentially harm their users' data or their computer. It's also important to remember, you may have a clean website with absolutely no malware or phishing attempts in it, but if you don't have an SSL certificate regardless of that, it is still going to show as not secure. So if you don't have an SSL certificate, get one, especially if you're in the healthcare industry. So in general, it is of paramount importance to make sure that security systems stay up to date with the latest technology and the latest updates, because this just hardens your security even more. It makes it harder for hackers to come in and exploit your systems. Remember, it's important to keep your updates going. In NHS's case, they can't just turn off their systems to perform updates. Their servers have to be kept on 24/7, or else their patients can't be treated. Unfortunately for them, their budget doesn't allow them to update their systems, but that is just something that's really important to take care of. Whether you are in that industry or any other industry, cybersecurity is one of the most important things. It does open doors for legal trouble as well if your systems get compromised and sensitive customer data gets stolen, because now they're not happy with you because some hacker on the other side of the world has your banking information. Immediately upon learning that your data was compromised in any way, always make sure that you have your banking information changed if it involved passwords. just change your passwords immediately. It's just important to remember that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility on the consumer level and on the enterprise level as well. I'm going to cover a few things that you could possibly do to help make sure that your organizations are better prepared for cybersecurity related issues. But before I do, Sara, what do you have to say about any of this? What's your overall opinion now that I've told you about why NHS faced a major ransomware attack? And as a patient of NHS, what do you have to say?
Well, two of the hospitals involved, which is the Guy's and St Thomas's Trust. I'm a member of Guy's Hospital and St Thomas's in Westminster. I belong to both of them hospitals, and I didn't get any information from anyone that my patient data had been stolen, but they said everybody at the hospital who's a patient would have within the trust all their identification, their date of birth and everything was stolen and all leaked on the dark web. This is the bad thing. It's all been attacked and all the information has been given to the dark web. And everyone knows that the dark web is a dark place, and that's not where you want your data and all your information. Being an NHS service, it's a free service, but you have to obviously pay national insurance when you're at work. So when you work or any other time, you have to pay into National Health Service to get your entitlement for medical treatment. Unlike, obviously, in the US, you pay for it yourself. Over here, we actually do pay for it, but in a different way because it comes out of our pay, the national insurance, and then when we need treatment, we just go to the hospital. But so therefore, you don't need any bank details. Your personal bank details are not given to hospitals, not when you're a member of the United Kingdom. So in that way, that's good. But in another way, they've got your date of birth, they've got your name, they've got your address, they've got all your details, your hospital number, your NHS number, which your hospital number is just for you and your NHS number is just for you. And therefore, they can obviously become you, I guess. I don't know how that works, but they can probably take your details and create bank accounts in your name. It can be used for cybercrime, as you said. It can be cryptocurrency. I guess all sorts of things they can use your personal data for. So me as a patient at both of them hospitals that are involved, it's quite scary to think that actually they've possibly my details are in a Russian hands. I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know what to make of it, but you know, as you said through your research and that they have been done before, not these hospital as such, you know, the trust, but it shows you how easy it is. And as you say, it can't be shut down. It's not like you can shut the whole system down and then repair it and then reboot it because you've got patients 24/7. Okay, those two hospitals, St Thomas's has got an accident emergency department, so they are open 24/7. 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. So there's no way on earth they could shut that hospital's details down and reboot. Guy's and St Thomas's is not an accident and emergency, although they do take emergency patients occasionally. So they're not open 100% all the time, but they are open majority of the time. So, you know, it's scary. Again, it's scary because you know somebody has got your details. It's like with any scammer or if, you know, any hacker or whatever, you are scared that someone, well, you don't know, but someone has got all of your information and they are using it for bad things, you know, so they're pretending to be you. I mean, your tips are good, Christian, and I do make sure I have the padlock at the top. I do clear the browsing history every day. I do a system clean every day. I run a virus check every day before I finish, and then the computer goes off. The same with all my devices, like my phone, I shall do the same thing, and then my iPad, I do the same thing there. So I try and keep myself safe this end, but what else can you do? And I do updates when needs be. But yes, I mean, as for the NHS, yeah, it's scary when you're a patient and that happens. So, but what can I do? I can't do anything personally because it's now in the hospital's hands to deal with it.
It does sound like that you're doing the absolute correct things that you should be doing. You're doing everything right. You're doing everything you should be doing as a consumer, clearing your history, looking for the SSL certificate, making sure your computer's clean and having active virus scan running. You really do care about cybersecurity, and we both obsess over these types of things. We like to know what's going on out there because, you want to keep yourself safe. I want to keep myself safe. And on top of that, because I own CDG, I want my customers to be safe too. I like to educate them about cybersecurity. It really is scary to know that these hackers, whether they operate in groups or they operate alone, that they have the power to steal all of our information, commit identity theft, spend all our money, and do all sorts of heinous acts with it. All because the organizations that we entrust this information to aren't keeping their systems up to date. And we're going to talk about a few tips that businesses should follow in just a minute, but I also want to talk about another similar cybersecurity attack that happened recently. And this happened a year ago at the MGM resorts and casinos. So it was reported on July 19th, it was reported that police in the UK have arrested a 17-year-old for his role in a cyber criminal group that brought down the entire MGM resorts with ransomware, just like what happened with NHS basically. A press release came from the West Midlands Police, said that their regional organized crime unit and the UK's National Crime Agency made the arrest just last week, and they were working together with the FBI. It was part of a global investigation into a large-scale cyber hacking community which has targeted a number of major companies, which includes MGM Resorts here in the US, which was quoted by their press release. Now, he was not named, but he was revealed to have been a member of a cybercrime group called Scattered Spider. I've never heard of them, but they also go by Octotemptus or Octopus, which is spelled 0K instead of OC like regular octopus, or even UNC 3944. MGM Resorts lost $100 million and they had to shut down most of their operations. They had to shut down operations across the Las Vegas Strip. This is just another example of ransomware at work, taking down systems and holding data hostage. It was revealed that they had to pay an unspecified ransom and they had to shut down all their systems. And we all know that the Las Vegas Strip is a very busy place and there's casinos and hotels all up and down the Strip. By the way, we don't condone gambling here at CDG, but it is important to note that a lot of people travel out there regularly and they mainly go just so they could gamble all their money away. Unfortunately for MGM and several other unnamed organizations, they are facing the exact same problem that NHS is facing. What do I have to say about this? First, practice cybersecurity like it's the end of the world. Always make sure that you have the best systems in place. Make sure that everything is up to date. So I am going to read off a few cybersecurity tips that were shared by HORNET Security. According to an article that they published, they wrote about some must-have cybersecurity measures for the health sector. The article focuses on NHS, but honestly, these tips can be applied in any sector, in any industry. So first of all, it's important to remember, catch up. Have a security awareness training program in place. A lot of the employees of NHS, as well as many other organizations and companies, they go to work every day, but because they all work in different departments not related to cybersecurity, cybersecurity is the last thing on their mind. So it is important to have a security awareness program in place so that way everybody learns about the basics of cybersecurity. Human error accounts for 95% of all cybersecurity incidents, according to the World Economic Forum. So having a program in place trains all employees, even the ones that aren't tech savvy, that they know what to do should there be a cybersecurity attack, how to handle sensitive data appropriately, whether it be patient data, customer data, or even their own data. They'll know how to make sure that it stays secure. They'll know general best practices over how to handle these things to make sure it doesn't end up in the wrong hands. Also utilize multi-factor authentication. We've talked about this in many different episodes of BizCast. Multi-factor authentication, this just helps ensure that only the owners have access to certain accounts. We've all had it set up to where we sign in with our password to get into our email accounts, just using that as an example. But then it asks for us to confirm that we're signing in through our phone, usually with a prompt asking us to hit a button that says, yes, this was me. Multi-factor authentication ensures that only the owners of the accounts are able to get into their accounts. Because if a hacker somehow stolen your password, they may have your password, but that's about as far as they'll make it. They will not be able to truly access your account because it's going to ask the owner of the account to verify the sign-in, either with a code or with a prompt on their smartphone asking you to confirm the sign-in. And unless you can confirm that sign-in, you're not going to be able to get any further in. So that helps ensures that hackers stay out of your accounts, even if they have your password. And anytime you make an account on any platform, whether it be for email or social media, and especially for banking, always use multi-factor authentication. That way your data stays secure and only in your hands. hands. And then also when it comes to keeping important data safe, back up regularly. Always make sure that you have backups going regularly for your computers, for your server data, and then of course for your website. There are several different programs and cloud-based storage options out there that you can use to ensure that your data stays backed up on a regular basis. Back up daily. If you can back up hourly, do that. Consumers, if you're on a Mac, there is the time machine option, which allows you to go back in time to a certain date if you need to revert your computer should a virus or a computer program mess up the integrity of your overall system. How does it do it? It does regular backups to a hard drive you have connected to your computer. It saves the files, it makes a backup point, and then it allows you to go back. Windows has this as well. Windows has restore points, which allows you to go back before making a certain major change. This ensures that if you make a major change that destroys the integrity of your computer, you can always go back in time before you applied it. On the enterprise level, you'll want cloud-based storage that keeps all your files secure. When it comes to website backups, talk to your hosting companies and ask them what options they have available. A lot of hosting plans out there even have daily website backups as a major feature included with the plans they offer. So if something happens with your website that causes it to go down, you can simply revert back to an earlier copy. Keeping backups is very, very important. Always have a backup and a recovery plan in place. Create recovery disks for all of your systems. Windows and Mac all have options available for you to create system restore disks that you can put in should anything happen to your computers. And then of course, this mainly applies to enterprise level systems, but make sure that you have bulk actions in place to manage permissions at large scale. Make sure you have a system in place that allows you to apply certain actions to computer system-wide that will keep your computer secure. Certain actions related to policies or modifications. That way, only certain admins can perform certain things. For example, you don't want some intern that you have able to install software that could be a security risk. You only want to have administrators do that. Make sure you have a system in place that sends out critical alerts to your IT managers just in case there is a major breach that either occurs internally by members of the organization who use the computers or anything external, such as from hackers. And always perform regular audits to ensure that everything is up to date, backups are being done regularly, all cybersecurity protection systems are running. Those are just some general tips that'll just make the business world a much better place for the end user, all of the organization's members, and then of course for the consumer. And that's my final word. Follow good cybersecurity practices, even at the basic level. Even if you cannot afford a robust cybersecurity platform, at least make sure that you're performing the general practices, that you're doing things at the basic level. And that's pretty much it right there. I'd like to go ahead and close out the episode. Sarah, do you have anything else you would like to add that I did not cover? Anything else that you would like to share with our listeners?
No, I think you covered everything that needed to be done. I like the verification. I get that when I'm logging on to my PC, I get a message on my phone to say, is this you? So then I have to press on my phone, it's me. So I have to put a password in and it's me. I like that because that's extra security, which I do like. But I suddenly had a thought, and this is a good thought for everybody, I guess, all the listeners. If you imagine all the hackers and scammers and all these bad people with all this great knowledge of technology, if they suddenly was to turn to doing good things, what a brilliant world we'd live in. What a fantastic world we would live in. That's my final word.
Exactly. If these hackers would use their skills for good instead of for evil, the world would be a much better place. But unfortunately, that would call for us having a perfect world, which we just cannot have. It's sad, but I agree with you. It would be nice. If they know how to do all these things with computers, then why not use your skills to secure? Why not get a job as a cybersecurity expert and use those skills to secure our systems, to make sure that those who are out there with malicious intent never steal our data or get anything out there. But, these are criminals. They are not thinking with a moral head. Their goal is just to steal your information and use it for their benefit. Everybody out there, consumers, businesses, organizations, practice cybersecurity as much as you can. If you're on a budget, practice it at the very basic level and always know what you're doing. Make sure that every single ounce of data that comes in is secure. Your customers' information, your internal documents related to business operations, everything needs to be secure. I would also like to say that please consult with a cybersecurity cybersecurity firm and have an audit done to find out what solutions your particular organization needs. We are not cybersecurity experts. We are just providing this information for your information only. If you need a rock-solid place and plan, we recommend that you consult with a cybersecurity firm or expert, and they will help get you on the right track. We thank you for tuning in to this episode of CDG BizCast. Thank you again, Sara, for being on the show. You have a great rest of your day. Everybody out there, stay safe.
You too, Christian. Thank you for having me on the show, and stay safe, everyone.